Hi, welcome to Tech Tips with James the Tech. Today I'm going to be talking about writing interactive fiction with the Ink app. And for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, just a reminder that we do have more episodes of this on our YouTube channel at the Richmond Public Library here in British Columbia. And you're welcome to go back into the previous episodes to find out what ink is exactly, how you can download it, and how to start using it. But if you're just kind of curious and you want to see how this app is coming along and how you can write some interactive fiction, then stay tuned. So here, what I want to show you first is just how the app is working out, because I think it's actually working out fairly well. So here, let me just bring this up here. And there we go. Okay, here I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And there we go. And do. Alright, so actually I'm going to make that a little bit smaller there, and then a little bit bigger here. And alright. So there we go. So I'm gonna make it cover my entire screen. So the dimensions are gonna look a little bit strange, but that's that's okay. So here we go. This is the app that I've been working on called The Lich King. It's the story of you, who is an adventurer, and you are in a village that celebrates the festival of the Lich to remember the time that your village defeated this zombie-like creature, and now you are tired of just pretending to be an adventurer and you want to be an adventurer. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. You do have the interactive choice of deciding. So first you can continue to create your character, which is a clickable link. What I do want to show you is, which is really cool because you can test this out as an HTML web page, you can click on theme here, and then you can go for dark theme or light theme. This is only with the newest version of Ink. So if you have an older version, it doesn't have those options. You can also save where you are, and you can restart. I don't know how well those, because they're so small, I don't know how well those will work on a phone app. We'll be actually finding that out, not this coming Thursday, but the Thursday after it. So a week from this Thursday. And that'll be at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're around and you want to check that out on Twitch, then definitely check that out, because we're going to be looking at how you can turn this into a phone app, and I'll go into how you can turn it into HTML and all of that as well. But for now, as HTML, it works pretty well, as you can see. So I'm going to go for dark theme because I find it easier on my eyes. So I'm going to go to create your continue to create your character. So the last couple of times we'd use variables to figure out how to do random dice rolls, how to make temporary variables and global variables which carry throughout the entire game. So let's see here. So first we're going to choose a preferred pronoun. I'm going to go for they, them. My personal pronoun is he, him. But for playing this game, I like to make sure that everything works. So I'm also going to be I'm going to go for wizard. And my background is going to be, so I've got elf, dwarf, or human. And I'm going to let's go for elf. And here we go. Greetings, Elf Wizard. And it's got the photo that you can see randomly. It's giving me bonuses on different things that I can use throughout the game. So that, for example, strength, I have a +1 bonus. So for, say, I have a sword, then I can always, when it does a random roll, it'll add +1. Or if I use magic, +6. My health being 11, I'm going to tell you because I know how the game works because I programmed it. It's not very good, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so now I can continue. And now the story continues. I'll start reading it to you so you get a good idea of what it's like. Back in town, the festival of the Lich is in full swing. Many of your friends are out in costume, dressed like the Lich King or an adventurer who has defeated it. Hello, friend, you hear Bailey call from Bailey's Broadswords and More stall. You're not dressed as a lich nor an adventurer. That mean you're not celebrating? So you have two choices. I'm celebrating, just not in the mood to dress up, you say and leave. I'd rather be adventuring for real, you tell Bailey. And so here I can see, as I'm reading it out loud to myself, well, not to myself, to you, that I've obviously forgotten on this line, I've obviously forgotten a quotation, which is pretty important. So I'm going to make sure that when I do the game, and actually what I'll show you is I'm going to fix that right now, or why not. So I'm going to make that like that, and then I'm going to bring up my my ink game, and there we go. Okay, so there's the ink game here. So I know that the error that I have is in Bailey when it's first starting. So if you remember, I mentioned that on the left-hand side, I have all of my included ink files. So I've created separate files for different things because it makes it easier to program the game. So I know that if I want to add something to it, like for example, if I wanted to add something to the stats rolls, like strength, constitution, things like that, I can go to the stats file. If I want more items to be usable, I can go to the equipment inventory and create more items if I want. Right now I'm going to go to Bailey because that's a part of the game that we're at, and you can see here it says, "Hello, friend. I'm celebrating, just not in the mood to dress up," you say. And then the next one, "I'd rather be celebrating for real." And I can see right here that I'm missing the quote. So I'm going to put in the quote, make sure I save it, and you'll have noticed that on the left-hand side, when I changed the game, the file that I changed boldened, so I know that it needs to be saved. I save as I go as much as possible, just in case I have a crash, because Inky sometimes can be a little bit finicky depending upon your system resources. So I always play it safe. All right, so now we'll go back to the game. There we go. And I'm going to choose, and you'll notice that the quotation does not show up here because this I've already exported as an HTML, so no changes I make in the programming app are going to show up in this until I export it again, just in case you're curious. So now I'm going to click on I'd rather be adventuring for real. The other one you're telling Bailey that you're good and you don't want to, and it ends the game. So I didn't want to do that. Okay, so you want to hunt the real Lich King? Bailey asks with raised eyebrows. They reach beneath the counter and produce an old leather map. Perhaps, they say, you'd be interested in a map of the dungeon for 50 gold. So now you have some choices. You're tired of pretending to defeat the Lich King, and you buy the map. Some weapons, armor, or tools would be helpful. Be on your way. Check your inventory. So if I check my inventory, I'm going to make sure that this works. It tells you what you're carrying. I have a rucksack, 100 gold. I'm armed with Fists of Fury, and I can also kick as long as I've stretched first. And you're wearing the hefty wool sweater knit by your dad. And so here you also have the choice of switching your weapon, switching your armor, and all of that. So I'm going to go to return to the quest. And here you're tired of pretending to defeat the Lich King, and you buy the map. I'm going to buy the map. And then now I'm gonna. I know that I have 50 gold left, so because I programmed this, I know how this works. I have enough for a sword, and then I have enough for padded armor. And so now I can be on my way. I can go. And now I'm going into the dungeon. You see all these nice images are showing up. Everything's working really well. And I again have some choices. I'm not using the sword yet, and I'm not wearing the armor. But now if I check my stats and supplies, it should actually show me yes. So now it is showing me the type of person that I have chosen. So I'm an elf wizard. I am it shows all my bonuses, so I know what my bonuses is. And I've also added this thing for your score. So I've kind of decided that throughout the game, depending upon what you do, you can pick up a score. And then if you finish the quest, which is basically finding the Lich King and defeating the Lich King, then you can. Well, I haven't really decided what's gonna happen. Either it's gonna end the game and you just see who has the high score, or what I might do is make that sort of experience points, and then you can actually use it to improve your strength bonus and improve or maybe improve one bonus, and then if somebody from the community or myself creates another adventure, then you would possibly be able to use, well, possibly I could make it so that you can use the same character, and then you can grow and make things harder. So we could even create something with the variable so that if you have gone through all these rooms before, you can have it do a check to see if you have, and then you go through it again and make it harder. But by that time, if you go through the same adventure over and over again, eventually people, no matter how random you make it, it's still kind of the same thing. So it's more fun to make it different adventures, I think. So here if I continue, then it goes to what I'm carrying, and I have the option of check or switch your weapons, and I'm going to use the sword, and I'm going to switch my armor. And here, what I did notice is that suddenly there's a lot of choices. If you notice, I went through it pretty fast, but when I did the switch, switch your weapons, it only showed what weapons I had. So then, but here it gives me a whole bunch of different options. So now what I'm going to do is, because we can see that basically the game works, which is kind of the bonus. You can see too here I have, because I bought so much stuff, I have 0 gold. So I'm going to switch that off and go into programming. And here, there. Okay, so here what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go into equipment inventory, because this is where that switch your armor was. And really handy, that really helps, is always remembering to do these comments. So // space, anything after that is a comment. The game ignores it, but it helps you to know exactly what's there. So here we go. So inventory choices, check cursed armor. So the reason why I have this variable, or this if then option here, is because if you get the cursed armor, I didn't want you just to be able to take off the cursed armor and put on regular armor. If you get the cursed armor, you have to find the scroll that allows you to remove the curse. So here, your armor. Okay, so now armor switch. So that's what I'm looking for. It's right here, armor switch. Now if I go down, equipment inventory. So armor switch. So if padded armor is greater than 0, then it's going to give you the option to put on the padded armor. Change the armor name to padded armor. So anytime in the game when it says you are wearing, it will know that it's padded armor. Change your AC to 12, and then it goes to equipment inventory. So that's why it's giving so many options, is that it gives the option for padded armor, and then it also gives the option under equipment inventory, which is all of the original options. In weapon switch, it didn't do that though, which is kind of funny, because it's exactly the same thing. It goes to equipment inventory. So I wonder why that is. So it gives you, yeah, it's exactly the same thing, but it's giving two different outputs. I'm just going to go back to the test and get a good look at how that's actually occurring. And okay, so put on the padded armor, check or switch your weapons, switch your armor, use your magic items and tools, return to the quest. So if I go to switch weapons, use your hands and feet, use the sword, use your fists and feet. Oh, interesting. So it's giving me two options. So I've got a mistake there too. So let's take a good look at that, and that actually might solve the other issue as well. So let's go to weapon switch, which is right here. Here, it's going to say if a_hands, which is the variable that I gave for that the game knows is for your fists. If it's greater than 0, so 0 means you're not 0 means you're not using it. 1 means you're using it. So if it's greater than 0, the other thing I could do too, if I didn't want greater than 0, because I know I'm just using 0 and 1, what I could do is equal, and then 1. And then what that means is if a hands is equal to 1, which means I'm using it, then it's going to give the option to say use your hands and feet. If you choose the option, if you click on it, then it goes on to what's next underneath. So that's going to be changing the a hands variable to 0, which means you're now using your hands and feet. Use your hands and feet. If a hands equals 1, it means you have it. I think this might be my issue, because a hands is 0. 0 means you don't. 1 means you do. So this should actually be if it's equal to 0, because it means you are not using your hands. So then you're going to say that you are going to use your hands. So now it is going to be 1, because you're using it. So I actually had that backwards there. That's kind of what mixed me up there. Damage is just going to be your strength bonus. So if your strength bonus is 1, for example, then the damage that you do is just going to be 1. It's actually just going to be rolling a dice depending upon what weapon you're using, +1. Okay, so a weapon, that's the variable, so the game knows what to say your weapon is. So if you notice here, um, where it says you're wearing the hefty wool sweater by your dad, and I just noticed I didn't switch over. So here, so you probably had no idea what I was just talking about there. So let me switch over. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Oops, there. Okay, that's better. Okay, so here, so fist of fury and obviously your feet. So all of that looks like it's correct. And if you want to test it out too, remember you can, on the right hand side in this box is the game playing. It just doesn't show you the images and everything. So you can see where it's going to look for the image. So here it shows where it's looking for the image, but it's not going to actually show the image because it doesn't do that in this app. So I'm going to say continue to create your character. I'm going to say he, him. What is your occupation? Let's go for warrior. Oops. And then, what background are you? Let's go for human. And I don't know why suddenly it's doing the bold on everything, but that's fine. It doesn't. It's just a weird thing it's doing. It doesn't affect the game at all. The programming. Greetings, human warrior. Strength +4. Oh, this is pretty good. Okay, so then I'm going to continue. Celebrating, just not in the mood to dress up. Rather be adventuring for real. I am going to just go to check your inventory is what I want to do. Okay, so here is where I want to see if this is going to work. So check or switch your weapons. Okay, so your weapons, obviously your hands and feet. Use your hands and feet. Use your fists and feet. Okay, so let's look over here on the left for use your fists and feet, which is right here. So I don't need this twice. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so now it disappears on the other side. Aha! Okay, so now it's giving me all of these other options, just like it did with armor. So I knew there was a reason why it wasn't doing it. So I wonder if I got rid of this here. Use your hands and feet. But now it won't go to equipment inventory unless you choose it. So you would have to choose this in order for it to go to equipment inventory here at the bottom, over here at line 77. So I do want another option just in case. I mean, maybe you don't want it. You thought you wanted to switch weapons, but you don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the option of return to quest. I think it needs. And so I'm going to say here, return to quest. And then it shows up over here on the right hand side. And I wonder if you can see it because maybe I'm in the way. So let me just double check this here. You can kind of see it. I'm going to put myself over here for now. And I'll just make sure I'm programming up here at the top. Okay. Just so you can see what's happening. Okay, so now we've got the choice of return to quest, use your hands and feet, but you might just want to return to the inventory menu as well. And so the inventory menu is equipment inventory. So that's kind of important here. So the plus sign gives it a sticky choice, so that means that the player can choose that option over and over and over again. If you use an asterisk, it only chooses it once. The square bracket is going to take whatever the option is, and then it disappears when you click on it. If I wanted that option, the wording to the option to stay, then I would not put the square brackets. Return to inventory menu. And then the minus sign, greater than sign is the go-to, and the go-to I wanted to go to is equipment inventory. There. So I also want this. So now, okay, now you have the option return to inventory menu. So if I do that, it goes back to the inventory menu. If I go switch your weapons, it tells me that I have hands and feet, and I can return to the quest. So if I return to the quest, then it just goes back to Bailey's. And now I have the option of buying the map or not buying the map. So I'm going to say buy the map. And then I'm going to go weapons. And I'm going to say buy a sword. And now I'm going to check my inventory again. So now when I say check or switch your weapons, it should give you the option. Obviously, okay, so it tells you you have your hands and feet, and you have a sword. And so now you have the option of using your hands and feet, using the sword, or returning to the quest, or to the inventory menu. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. So if I say use the sword, what should happen if I program this correctly, so let's go up to sword and just make sure, because what I wanted to do is to switch from using the sword, which will mean that the sword value is going to be equal to 1, and the hand value is going to be equal to 0, because I'm switching from sword to hand. So use your hands and feet. Okay, so so actually this shouldn't show up because you should automatically be using your hands and feet. So to fix that, if I go to my main file, this is where I have all my variables. So var is for variable, and this is where I have told the program this is what they all mean. And I think it's under character stats. So here, so I used the comment / / to remind myself that these are my stat variables. And then down, I did not put the hand in there. So item variable, here we go. I put it under item variable. So a underscore hands equals 0, which means you are not using it. But actually, I want the game to start off with you using it. So it's going to be 1 instead of 0. So now you can see on the right hand side, it has disappeared. There is no option to use your hands, but the sword disappeared too, so that kind of concerns me. Return to the quest, return to inventory menu, okay, return to quest, return to quest, no armor, I want weapons. Let's try that again. Sword for 20 gold, and then if I go to inventory, okay, so when I just made that switch, I think it just reset the game over on the right hand side. So if I want to really test it out, what I want to do is go up into these corner arrows. The one on the right hand side with the double arrow restarts right from the beginning. The second one just goes back as single choice. So here, I'm going to go check or switch weapons. Now the sword should show up. So let's see your weapons. Obviously your hand and feet. Sword, use the sword. Perfect, that's what I want. So use the sword. So now you are carrying. You are armed with a sword. So now, under equipment inventory, where it says use a sword, so a weapon is equal to sword. So now when it says you are using a, and it checks that a underscore weapon variable, it's always going to say sword. A hands is now going to be equal to not 1, it's going to be equal to 0, because you're not using your hands. Damage is now going to be equal to 2 plus your strength bonus. And the last thing that I want that I don't have on here, so if I use the tilde space, so tilde is telling the game or the programming that you are about to change a variable, and I'm going to have a underscore hands, and you can see that it's giving me 2 options here. I think you can see it. It's giving me 2 options here of 2 variables that I could choose from. I can just hit enter on a hands. I'm going to say equals, and I don't want a hands, sorry. I want sword. So there we go. Nope. Oh, because I have the capital. And my variable is, there we go. So it's just sword. It's not a underscore. So sword is now equal to 1. Oh, sword will already be equal to 1 because you bought the sword. So actually, I don't have to have that in there. And instead of just greater than, I'm actually going to change that to is equal to 1. I think that makes it a little bit more clear for me when I'm trying to think about what's going on here. Okay, so a hands is equal to 0. So now if I check or switch my weapons, I can switch my hands and feet, or I can use the sword. If I wanted to, if I don't want that, because I am using the sword, I can just say use the sword. And then if I go check or switch your weapons, again it says I can use the sword. But if I don't want that to show up there, like let's say if you're using the sword, then I don't want it to show. I don't want to use the same variable as I do for checking if you have the sword, because if I say sword. Actually, you know what? If I say sword is equal to 1, because you have it, then it's going to give use the sword. If I say sword is equal to 1, then and not to show it, then it's not going to show it at all. But what I can do, so I was just thinking in my head, and that's very often what you have to do with this kind of programming, is you have to sort of think to yourself. It's almost like doing mathematical formulas in your head, where you're trying to decide, what's going to happen in the future if I put this in. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use 0 as you're not using it, or don't have it. 1, you're armed with it, and 2 is going to, or pardon me, 1, you own it, and 2 is going to be you're armed with it. So now I'm going to have this say a hands is equal to 0, and then I'm going to say tilde sword. So I'm saying tilde, you're changing the variable, sword is the variable, equals 2. So now it's not going to show up because it's not equal to 1. However, the only problem with that is now it's always going to be equal to 2. So if you had the sword and you wanted to not use the sword, then you say you wanted to use the mace or something like that because you had the mace as well. And you can see the game on the right hand side is completely confused, so I'm just going to restart it from the beginning to reset everything, because I need to reset all the variables. So now I have to think about this, because if sword is equal to 2, and then I change over to mace, sword is still going to be equal to 2, but I can't say, actually what I could do, no, I couldn't do that either. Okay, so what I was thinking of is I could say, if you change to mace, then sword is equal to sword minus 1, but then if sword is 0, then your variable is going to go to minus 1, and that doesn't work. Oh, actually, you know what, that might work, because even if your sword goes to minus 1, under purchases, when you buy a sword for 20 gold, it instead of saying sword is equal to sword plus 1, what I could do, and I think it was because you could have this as a asterisk choice, so that means it's not sticky. So the person Bailey only has 1 sword to sell. So what I could do is just say sword is equal to 1 if you buy it. So now you have the sword. Then when you go to equipment inventory and it checks for sword, if sword is equal to 1, it's going to give you the option to use the sword. And then it's going to change the variable of a weapon to equal the word sword. So the game says you have a sword throughout the game. Your hands is now equal to 0 because you're not using your hands. And sword is now going to be equal to 2 because you have been armed with the sword. So now what I can do is say you also have the mace. And this actually might get a little bit lengthy here. So yeah. Okay, so here, if you change over to mace, what I want to do now is change that sword. Not sword is equal to 2, but sword is equal to sword minus 1. So in doing that, if you never bought the sword, sword would start off at being at the variable 0. If you did buy the mace, and you also bought an axe, then when you switched to the mace, sword would go to minus 1 as a variable. And then axe, if you changed over to axe, sword would go to minus 1 as a variable. So then when you bought the sword, but you know what, that's not going to work either, because if you have the sword already, and you suddenly put it to minus 5 because you switch over between mace and axe so much, then it's never going to know again that you have the sword, and that's kind of an issue. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an if-else choice. So I'm going to use if-else inside of mace and see if this clears it up. So I use the squiggly brackets, and then the if statement is your minus sign. Get rid of the tilde. So if the variable sword is equal to 2, meaning that you're using the sword, and then you need the colon. Then we're going to change the variable with the tilde. Sword will now be equal to 1. Okay, and then the minus sign, else, so and colon. So if sword isn't equal to 2, then it just goes to give you equipment inventory and goes back to that, which yeah, that should work. Okay, and then I need another closing squiggly bracket to round that up. Oh, it's not letting me do that. Let's find out why. Expected value expressed to be assigned, but saw equals 1. Okay, I did assign it. If sword is equal to 2, then sword. Okay, let's try this then. Is equal to sword minus 1. Okay, so it's letting me do a mathematical formula. It just won't let me give it a straight up value. That's fine. So I know if sword is equal to 2, then I'm going to say sword is equal to 2 minus 1, which is going to bring it down to 1, which means you have it. You're just not arming yourself with it. So the thing with that is you need to do that with all of the things. So I don't actually want this else statement here. So I'm going to actually see if that works. So if I just do the if statement, so if sword, so if it doesn't, it's just going to ignore it, and that's the way that it should work. And then I should be able to do that with all of the others. So just because it's almost exactly the same thing, I'm actually going to copy it. I need to do it for axe, halberd, and hammer. So axe, halberd, and hammer. And then I just copied and pasted that. So let's go axe. If axe is equal to 2, then axe is equal to axe minus 1. And then I'm going to say if halberd is equal to 2, then halberd is equal to sword, to halberd minus 1. And if hammer, and sometimes there are easier ways to do this, and you wind up thinking about that later on, but right now this is the easiest way that I can think of to do it. So if you come up with another idea, please let me know, and we can we can talk about it. So here I'm gonna move myself over here so that you can see everything that I'm doing. Okay, so now what I need to have is all of this, including a hands. So what I'm going to do is actually, to make this a little bit easier, because I can copy and paste all of this. So I'm going to actually take a hands variable, and I'm going to put it underneath a damage. So there, you can see that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hands, sword, axe, halberd, hammer. And I'm going to have to make one change, because this works for mace, but when I go to axe, oh, and actually, you know what? I already have the hands thing, because I already put that in everywhere. So I just need the new one. Okay, so here, when I go to axe, before equipment inventory, I'm going to give all those if statements. The only one that I need to change is axe, because I've already got axe, because I'm doing it for axe. So I want to change this to mace. And it's going to be that mace equals mace minus 1. And now, under halberd, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put those if statements, but where it says halberd, I'm going to change, I'm also going to change that to mace, because that's the only one that is missing. And I copied and pasted it from the mace options. And then hammer, same thing here. And except hammer is going to become mace. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. And I noticed too I watched a little bit of one of the videos to to see how things were working. If you could see everything, kind of thing. Check it out. And I noticed that it sounds like I type really loud, like I'm really banging on the keyboard, and I'm actually not. The mic is actually just very strong at picking things up. I don't actually hit my keyboard as hard as it seems, just in case you're worried about my keyboard. So okay, so here we go. So now let's test this out. Let's go to start the game over. So I'm gonna click on the restart story, and I'm gonna have it restart it because I want to see if all of this works. Let's find out. Okay. Continue to create your character. I haven't tried she her yet, so let's see if this one works. Let's try rogue. What background are you? Let's go dwarf. And that gives me my strengths. Strength +4, intelligence +2, dexterity +5, constitution +4, health is 15. Good character. Continue. No, I meet up with Bailey. I'm going to tell him that I'd rather be adventuring for real because it continues the game. Now, let's check her. Oh, actually, before I check my inventory, let's just, let's forget the map. I'm not going to buy it. I'm just going to get some weapons and armor. So now, I'm going to go to weapons, and let's say I'm going to buy the axe for 40 gold. And now I want to check my inventory. You are carrying a rucksack with 60 gold. You are armed with Fists of Fury. Remember that you can kick as long as you stretch first. You are wearing the hefty wool sweater knit by your dad. Check or switch your weapons. What should happen is it should tell me that the things I have are my Fists of Fury and my axe, and then it should give me the option to use my axe, but it should not give me the option to use anything else. Let's find out. Cross our fingers here. Check or switch your weapons. Your weapons, obviously your hands and feet, and axe, perfect. Use the axe, that's it. Return to the quest. Return to inventory menu. That's what I wanted. So now if I say use the axe and I do that again, it should still have these two options as my weapon choices, but instead of saying use the axe, it should say use your hands and feet and not give me the option for the axe. So let's see if I fix that. Use the axe. Now you're carrying, you're armed with axe. Check or switch your weapons. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Let's find out. Okay, check or switch your weapons. Obviously your hands and feet, an axe, perfect. Use the axe. Return to the quest. Didn't work. Okay. Wow. Let's find out why. Okay, so going back to axe. So if you know what? I wonder if it's because if axe is great. Oh, because I have if axe is greater than 0. So I needed to change that because axe is greater than 0. Axe is now 2. So what I need this to be is if axe is only equal to 0, then it shouldn't give me that option. So because I've just changed the variable, it's confused the test of the game. So I'm going to try going back one choice and see what happens. So there we go. One choice. Okay, so return to inventory menu. I might have to change, start the game over again. Let's use check or switch your weapons. Okay, so it doesn't give me the choice for the axe, but it should be giving me the choice for hands. And I think that's because a hands equals 1. 1 means you're armed with it. 0 means you're not. Oh, because up here, where I have obviously your hands and feet, a hands is equal to 0. Use your hands and feet. A hands is equal to 1. It's equal to 1. So what I have the game doing right now is it goes immediately back to it still says so if you choose the halberd, it's actually telling you that a hands is equal to 1, which means that you're using it. So what I want to have actually is a hands is equal to 0. So that was a a mistake on my part, and I think that's just because I hadn't fully decided what 0 and 1 were going to equal, like what they were going to mean. So I want to say if you switch to that particular weapon, then a hands variable is going to go to 0 because 0 means you're not using it. So when I get to axe, it should show up on the right hand side. So let's see why it didn't. So hammer, halberd, use the axe. Okay, so use the axe. So if axe is equal to 0, it'll give you the option of use the axe. Why is it if it's equal to 0? Should be if it's equal to 1. So I need to change that. That's why it's not showing up there, is because axe isn't equal to 0, it's equal to 1. So again, it's because I hadn't decided what 0 and 1 was going to mean. So then I need to go rewind a couple of choices so that I can put that back to where I was, because the game got confused because I changed all the variables. So now, okay, so now it says obviously your hands and feet, you have an axe, you have the choice of using the axe. So let's go use the axe. So then if I say check or switch your weapons, so it gives me the choice of use your hands and feet or use the axe. So I don't want it to say use the axe, but it's saying use the axe. Oh, because I didn't change the axe variable to 2. And 2 is actually what means you are 2 means you have it in use. So here, see, this is exciting. It's exciting when you figure this out. You go tilde axe, and oh, do I have it at a axe? No, axe is right. So axe is equal to axe. Oh, actually, just equal to. X is equal to 2. And there we go. So now the axe option disappears. If I go to return to inventory menu, it should say that I'm using the axe, so you're armed with the axe. Check or switch your weapons. It allows me to use your hands and feet, and that's it. So now if I go use your, you know what, I'm going to save, because if this crashes right now, that's a lot of work to lose. So there, I just saved it. Okay, so use your hands and feet. And now it says you're armed with your Fists of Fury. And if I go switch your weapons, fingers crossed, it should say axe and nothing else. Check or switch your weapons. It did not. Your weapons. Obviously, your hands and feet, an axe, return to the quest. Okay, so let's figure out why. So, because it'll only show up if axe is equal to 1. I now want it to show up only, so show up. So the reason why is because when I switched to hands and feet, it didn't switch everything else to 0. Because in hands and feet, I need to have all of the other if or statements that I have in this and everything else. Okay, so hands and feet, I need it before equipment inventory, so put it there. So sword is going to go back to 1, mace is going to go back to 1, halberd is going to go back to 2, and I actually just need that was a weird way of programming it. Okay, so now I need one for axe. Okay, so let's do that, but I'm going to have this as axe. If axe is equal to 2, then axe is equal to axe minus 1. So now you can see on the other side, it now gives me the option to use the axe. So if I use the axe, then now it says armed with axe. Check or switch your weapons. It now says I can use my hands and feet. Use my hands and feet. It now says use the axe. There we go. So let's say I return to the quest, which brings me back to Bailey's. I go to weapons and I say I want a sword. Now, if I check my inventory, I say check or switch your weapons. It says I can use the sword, I can use the axe, because right now I am armed with Fists and Fury. So let's say I use the sword. And then I say, so now it says you're armed with sword. Check or switch your weapons. So now it says use your hands and feet or use the axe. because currently I am using the sword. So it works. So there you go. So now it doesn't give that option if you're armed with something. Because if you're holding something, you don't have to say, I want to use my sword, because you are using it. And now it doesn't do that. So it makes it a little bit smoother, I think, for the player. And it worked out pretty well. So I think I would probably even do that for all of the armor, so that you have that option of, if you're using chainmail, then it doesn't say, do you want to use your chainmail? Because it just doesn't make sense. Because if I was a player, I'd be looking at that thinking, but I've already told you that I'm going to be using the chainmail, and it makes the game a little bit less fun. So I think that's it for today, and we've done quite a bit of programming for that. That was actually really good. So remember, you can tune in. If you're watching this live on Twitch, then you can tune in this coming Thursday at 3:30 Pacific time. If you are not watching this live, if you are watching this archived on our YouTube, then Thursday's episode might even be archived already, and you can check it out. So have a really good day, and I hope you have some happy programming.